Hi friends. How's it going? I hope you're doing super duper well on this fine day. I am in a reading slump, so that's not what I would have chosen for myself, but that is sadly where we are. What the heck was that? I DNF'd a book yesterday because I knew in my soul that if I continued to read the book, it would put me into a reading slump. However, little did I know, DNFing the book would also put me into a reading slump, so I'm kind of screwed either way. But I have a bestie who is also the manager of my local indie bookstore, and she very kindly brought me some advanced copies of books that are some of my highly anticipated new releases for the summer. Well, 2 of them are highly anticipated, and 1 I didn't know it was coming out, but I'm happy to have it anyways. And in order to hopefully catapult myself out of this slump, I'm gonna try a chapter to see which one I am in the mood for. So our choices are The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. This comes out in August. I will be honest, I read Red, White, and Royal Blue back in its ARC days before it was available to the masses, and I absolutely loved it. But I have not read any of Casey McQuiston's other books. I don't know if they're a romance author that I would still vibe with, and I've never reread Red, White, and Royal Blue, so I don't even know if I would still love that as the reader I am now, or if it was just a perfect in the moment type of book. This one's a road trip, and it's exes so it's Theo and Kit who just broke up. Oh no. And have to go on a European tour together for reasons. Anyways, that could be a good time. I haven't read a romance, like a non-fantasy romance, in a real long time. And last time I read a historical, when was the last time I read a contemporary romance? I don't know. And last time I read a historical was in February, and I didn't like it. I gave it like 2 stars. So I feel like I'm due to have a romance that I would like. So that is an option. The other option is A Sorceress Comes to Call by Kingfisher. This comes out in August as well. I super duper love Kingfisher, but her fairy tale retellings have not been my favorite in the past. I think Nettle and Bone is fine. I really didn't care for Thornhedge a whole lot, but this is a retelling of The Goose Girl, and The Goose Girl is my favorite fairy tale. Like if we're talking like Grimm's, Hans Christian Andersen, like that style of fairy tale, The Goose Girl is a fave and has been a fave since I was a kid. Don't ask me why. If anybody knows, if there's a book that breaks down fairy tales and like discusses what your favorite fairy tale says about your personality, kind of like horoscope or an Enneagram, but with fairy tales, I would be very interested in that book. I wonder if that book exists. Anyways, this is a retelling of The Goose Girl. So this is also kind of will be my last ditch attempt at reading Kingfisher's fairy tale books. If I don't like this, I'm just gonna stop reading them. No pressure or anything. And then the last one is Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. This comes out in July, and this is slasher horror. Need I say more? So this is what we're starting with. I'm gonna try a chapter of each. I'll come back. I'll let you know what happened in that first chapter, and then hopefully I'll get out of this ding dang slump that I am in. Y'all, I cannot get over how nice it is outside today. I'm gonna go for a walk later, and I cannot wait. But in the meantime, I put on some old reading sprints from Gavin, and I have a spring instrumental playlist playing on Spotify. I've got like every device out, but it's fine. I needed support to focus on reading this afternoon. But I did read the first chapter-ish of The Pairing. It starts with the beginning from Theo's point of view and talking about the first time, like when Theo and Kit decide that they're going to be together. It's at Halloween, and they are roommates living in Palm Springs, and they're dressed up like Sunny and Cher for a Halloween party that they have already left. And so you get that night of Halloween, and it talks about them hooking up, but the language is very brief. So it's not a fade to black, but like it's clear what is going on, but it's not explicit about what's going on. And then you get the next morning when they confess their feelings, and then the next like page is the end from Theo's perspective, and it's after Kit and Theo have broken up. So you don't see the breakup, but you get Theo's point of view directly after, and then you jump ahead 4 years. So I really liked it. It was very easy to read. Thank goodness. So concerned about if my brain was going to be able to focus. But I had forgotten that I really like Casey McQuiston's writing style. So I am intrigued. I'll be interested to see if the POV switches back and forth, or if it's split up into bigger chunks, like we get a chunk from Theo and then a chunk from Kit, like, or if it just alternates perspective by chapter, like in typical romance novel fashion. But yeah, I really like that. I could have easily kept reading. I was already interested. The writing had a good flow. So what if I can't choose one book? We'll worry about that later. Okay, up next, I think I'm gonna do A Sorceress Comes to Call next, mostly because I'm kind of worried that if I pick up Bury Your Gaze, this chapter will be over. So we're gonna do this one next and see. The back of this says it's a dark retelling of the Goose Girl. Man, that one is already dark. So how much darker? Maybe I'll like it more though. Like if this fairy tale retelling has more of a horror element to it, because I really love T. Kingfisher's horror. So maybe that will be the key to making her fairy tale books work for me. We'll find out. Oh man. Okay. They weren't kidding. They said it was dark. So chapter 1 is about 9 pages, and we meet Cordelia, who is 14 at the beginning of the book. And Cordelia lives alone with her mother. And Cordelia's mother has the ability to control Cordelia's body, basically, when Cordelia misbehaves. Cordelia describes it as being made obedient. And you know what it reminded me of the compulsion element of Ella Enchanted. But instead of Ella only being forced to follow direct commands, Cordelia loses the ability to control her body at all. Like her mother does everything, and Cordelia mirrors whatever her mother does. So there's obviously some magic going on, but it's dark and it's very tense. And you just get a really firm idea of what Cordelia's childhood has been like leading up to this point. Cordelia does have a horse named Falada that she is allowed to ride around, and that's pretty much the only freedom and the only privacy that she gets. And then she has a friend named Helen who she met one day when she was younger, when she was riding Falada, and they meet, is it every day or once a week, and ride their horses together. But that's the only time that they see each other. And it's through Cordelia's conversations with Ellen that she gets the inkling that not all households operate the way hers does. So I really liked it. It was a good first chapter. I really liked like the almost immediate sense of foreboding, because the scene opens when Cordelia and her mother are at church, and Cordelia has been made obedient for whatever thing she did that her mother didn't like. And she's sitting down, she has her hands clasped in her lap, and there's a fly on her hands, and she can't move her hands to flick the fly away. And just the way Kingfisher described what that was like to be able to feel the fly on her hand, but not being able to control her head to look at it. She's not able to, shoo the fly away. And then like she smells something and it starts to trigger a sneeze, and then the sensation of the sneeze building, and Cordelia knowing she's not going to be able to turn her head, she's not going to be able to cover her nose, like she's just gonna have to like sneeze on the back of the head of the person in front of her at church, and how mad it's gonna make her mom. So it was just so well done. So well done. Yeah, I liked it. I liked that dark foreboding. I liked the tenseness of it. And no, I'm really optimistic now that I will like this one, which is a good feeling. All right. So now we're on to Bury Your Gaze, which all I know about this one so far is that it's set in Hollywood around a TV show, and the TV show is nominated for an Oscar, and the executive at the studio want the main character to kill off the gay characters for the algorithm in the upcoming finale. Woo! Is there anything else? All right. The rest of it's not important. I think there's monsters. It's Hollywood. It's Chuck Tingle. I read Camp Damascus last year and I really liked it, so I'm excited. I'm so excited for this one. I've forgotten how much Chuck Tingle loves a long chapter. Chapter 1 was like 21 pages. Dang. This was basically kind of what the little synopsis says at the beginning. Misha is coming onto the lot for the studio that he works for because one of the executives has scheduled a meeting with him to talk about his TV show and the arc for the next season. And so Misha knows that the conversation isn't probably going to go well because otherwise it could have just been an email. There's some world building introduced where Hollywood studios have really started to use AI, and there's a poster being put up for a movie with an actor, and the actor has died before filming for the movie that he's in. So the studio used all AI footage of this actor in order to film this movie. So AI is a really big part of that. And Misha goes to the meeting with the executive and is basically told that the algorithm says that Misha needs to get rid of the lesbian characters on his TV show and then introduce a more conservative character, and Misha's supposed to have creative control, and so of course he's like, I'm not gonna do that. And the studio execs is like, well, you're gonna be in breach of contract. And so, you know, they go back and forth and Misha leaves, and on his way out he sees this older man who works for the studio, and he's like having an interaction with a younger woman, and it just like Misha can get the ick vibes from like across the parking lot. And so Misha goes over to break it up, and he's trying to de-escalate the situation, but also like not letting the guy slide by on being a creep. And then he hears this noise, he turns away, and when he turns back, a grand piano has fallen on the older man, and there's blood splatter everywhere. And that's the end of chapter 1. I wasn't super into it at the beginning of the chapter. I was definitely getting distracted very easily during that first half of the first chapter, and I did have to go back and reread a couple of parts. My brain was just bouncing off the writing, but I feel like that happened to me with Camp Damascus. When I first started it, my brain bounced off of it a little bit, and then once I got into it, then everything kind of settled down. And I felt that way with this as well. Like at the beginning when Misha's in his car and he's waiting to get onto the lot, and then he sees a friend on the lot and they have a conversation. Like up until the meeting started, my brain was definitely very distracted. And then the meeting started, and then of course the grand piano falling just hooked me right in. But I actually don't think I'm in the mood to read a slasher right now. Shocking, I know. Actually, in a weird twist of events, I could not have predicted that this was going to be the outcome. I think I'm gonna read the Casey McQuiston. In between reading each chapter, I would think about the books a little bit, and I kept thinking about this one. I think this could be fun. And like I said, I haven't read Casey McQuiston since the first time I read Red, Right, and Royal Blue. So I think this will be fun to see what their next romance is going to look like. So yeah, I'm going to keep reading for a little bit. I do have to leave soon to go get my youngest from school. I think I'm gonna walk though because it's so nice outside. I mean, it's kind of, obviously I'm in my sweater, so it's kind of chilly, but the sun is out. It just looks so pretty, even though it's not quite warm enough to be thoroughly enjoyable, but I feel like some vitamin D would probably be good. But yeah, so I'll come back. I don't know. I feel like the BookTube standard is 100 pages in, which would be what, like a quarter of this book. So yeah. Why is Kate also, no shade, but why is Casey McQuiston write 400-page romance novels? Also, why is this becoming the first edition of this book is gonna have stenciled edges? Are you kidding me? Oh, I do love that. Okay, that's exciting. Well, hopefully I love it, and then I can buy a finished copy and have pretty stenciled edges on my bookshelf. Oh, but I was gonna say, why are contemporary romances 400 plus pages these days? Why are we doing that? Is it worth it? Because I keep looking at that like Lucy Score duology and what else? Well, I don't have them on my shelf because I don't read romances that are that long. But there's another contemporary romance book that I keep looking at that's like 500 pages. Like, why? What for? Why do we need that many pages to tell about a romance? I don't know. Anyways, but I'll come back when I have more to update. I've passed the 100 page mark. I'm 116 pages in. And let me tell you, this is the horniest fade to black romance book I think I've ever read in my life. We have Theo and Kit, who were best friends growing up and then started dating in their early 20s and then had this spectacular breakup on the way to take this epic culinary European tour. And they ended up getting vouchers for their trip, and now it's been, I think, 4 years, and the voucher is set to expire. And so Theo, our main character, decides to take the trip and then is shocked to board the bus and realize that Kit has decided to cash in his voucher as well. And so they're forced to go on this trip together that they meant to do as a couple. And I love Casey McQuiston's writing. Like, this has been a good reminder that I really like their writing and I really like how they write their characters. At this point, so the book starts, like I said, and I told you this already, but the book starts with seeing how they got together and seeing how it ended, but not the why it ended. We know Kit said something devastating to Theo on the plane ride over, but we don't know what. And so as Theo is slowly forgiving Kit and they're starting to be friends again, there's part of my brain that's like, why are you letting him back into your life? Like, what did he say to you? Which is generally why I don't like second chance romance, because I feel like if they broke up in the first place, like, there has to be a really good reason for why it's gonna work for them now, and I just don't know. But I love the food in this book. It's so good. The writing about the food is so good. The chapters are divided up by the city that they're in on the tour, and we're not getting Kit's perspective. It's all from Theo's perspective. So I wonder, in just a framing narrative, because we started with the beginning, Theo's version, and the end, Theo's version. I wonder if at the very, very end of the book, like, I wonder if the last 2 chapters will be the beginning Kit's version and the end Kit's version. I don't know if we will, but for as far as the narrative structure goes, that would make sense. Or if halfway through we get Kit's perspective and then the rest of the book is in Kit's perspective, or if it stays in Theo's perspective the whole way through. I will also say, based on this cover and the synopsis I read on the back, I thought this was going to be an Achillean romance, and it's not. Kit is a man, and Theo has been very ambiguous this whole time, which I find fascinating, because at no point in the back does the blurb use a pronoun for Theo. Him is used for Kit on the back, but Theo isn't. There's no pronouns assigned to Theo, and because we're in Theo's perspective, we don't get a pronoun for Theo in here. And it wasn't until I was maybe 30 pages in that a character used Theo's full name, which is Theodora. So Theo is written so androgynously. It's really fascinating to read McQuiston's writing and see where they choose to be really vague, and just the language that they use to describe Theo's body, the fact that this is a very much like a fade to black or super vague language for what would be a steamy scene, but because McQuiston doesn't go there, it's not a steamy scene. Anyways, it's really interesting, and I wonder if eventually Theo is going to come out to Kit as being a gender. I don't know, but I'm really interested to see like where this goes because I just wasn't expecting it. So it's very interesting. I will say the highlight is definitely the food. Like, don't read this book if you don't have quick access to snacks, because you're gonna want food and maybe a glass of wine while you're reading this book. All right, so that's the update so far. If I was going to rate the book just on the 116 pages I've read so far, I would probably give it like a 3.75. So we'll see where it goes. Yeah, we'll see if that rating changes or if it stays the same. All right, I just finished working out, so you know what, it's it just is how it is. But I finished The Pairing by Casey McQuiston this morning, so I have some thoughts. I'm gonna say what I said earlier. Over 400 pages I think is too long for a contemporary romance novel when there are not other things going on, like another genre paired with it, like a fantasy romance or a sci-fi romance or a mystery romance. I just think 400 pages is too long for just people falling in love. I know how that sounds. Believe me, I heard it coming out of my mouth too, but that is what I think. Now, I do think part of the reason this book is 400 pages is Casey McQuiston needed 200 pages to tell us about Theo and Kit falling back in love with each other, and also 200 pages to tell us about all the food and wine that they consumed in Europe. Because that, like, when it says The Pairing, like, it's not just talking about this couple, it is talking about food and wine and ingredients and just the magic that can occur when two seemingly ordinary things come together. So I think the food element was really my favorite part. I loved reading about all the things that they were eating. There is a ton of drinking in this book, like a ton. I don't understand how these two people drank as much as they did and still had a good time. I was hungover for them, like, after some of these scenes. And it did not stay as tame, steamy scene-wise as it was at the beginning. It gets progressively steamier as the book goes on. And this is also, like I said earlier, it's such a horny book, which I know I need some of my friends to read this book, because there would be scenes and I would be sitting there going, is this, and me being exhausted by this, is this a normal person response or is this my aceness coming to the forefront? Like, sometimes it's hard to tell. You know, if you are also a horny person, I don't think you'll find a book hornier than this one. I'll say it that way. And now I'm done saying that word because I've said it so much lately. POV, because I did talk about that earlier. You do spend half the book at Theo's POV, and it is first person. And then halfway through the book, we get the beginning from Kit's perspective, but it's a totally different scene. Like, it is what Kit views as the beginning of his relationship with Theo, whereas at the very beginning we got what Theo thought of as the end of their relationship with Kit. And then you also get the beginning, is it the end first? The beginning first and then the end, yeah. So you get the beginning from Kit's perspective, and then you get what felt like the beginning of the end of the relationship from Kit's perspective, if that made sense. And then you're in Kit's first person POV. And on the one hand, I liked splitting it in half like that because I was getting to a point where I was getting really annoyed with Theo and I was ready to switch to somebody else's perspective. But on the con side of that, I was really disoriented switching halfway through the book. I continuously forgot that I was in Kit's POV and that Kit was the one talking to me, and I would think it was Theo, and then something would happen and then I'd realize, oh no, it's still Kit. Like, so I had a hard time switching over halfway through. So I struggled with that. I also, I don't know if you want to count this as a spoiler or not, so maybe like scrub ahead 10 seconds if you want to know nothing about this book, but I'm going to start talking about it now. Theo does come out as non-binary, but Kit doesn't know at the beginning of Kit's section, so you do have to listen to Kit misgender Theo for a good 3 chapters, which, I don't know, that was an interesting choice. I don't know why Casey McQuiston chose to do it that way, but like, just watch out if that is something that you experience in real life, and so that is a sensitive subject for you. Just, you know, beware going into this book that is a thing that you have to encounter. It's the other thing I was gonna talk about in this book. I think splitting it in half is an interesting choice, and I would be interested in knowing why McQuiston chose to do half the book in Theo's perspective and half the book in Kit's perspective and not do the traditional alternating. This book did solidify that even though I liked this, I think I'm going to give it 4 stars because for the most part I did really like it. This did solidify that I do not like second chance romance. And I don't like second chance romance because you can't have the reason the couple broke up be so egregious that there's no way you can forgive one or both of the characters. Like, as the reader, one of them can't have done something so offensive that there's no way you can believe these two can be back together again, which means it's most normally a miscommunication that breaks them up. And it's never, not never, I have never read a second chance romance where the breakup is believable. I have read romances where you read the romance novel and then 3/4 of the way through, the one or both of the couple will realize they have some shit they need to figure out, and so the couple they'll break up for like the 3rd act conflict and then come back together like sometime down the road after one or the both of them have been to therapy. That I like. That is good. We need more of that. Thank you very much. But that isn't what that trope is. So yeah, I liked it. I will not be buying a finished copy. Sadly, I didn't like it that much. But I am glad I finally read another Casey McQuiston, and maybe this will be good catapult to go back and read the other 2 books that I missed, because I haven't read I Kissed Shara Wheeler, and I haven't read One Last Stop. I think I have both of those in audio, so who knows? Could be fun time. So yeah, that is the end of this video. Thank you so much for joining me and spending your time with me. I hope you enjoyed this little try a chapter experiment. Do you agree with the one that I chose to read? Which one would you have chosen to read? Are you excited for another book from Casey McQuiston? And yeah, let me know all the things. That's it for me today. So like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!